Items are items number 10 and 11. They're for 38-42 West 18th Street, also known as 41 to 45 West 17th Street in the Ladies Mile Historic District, docket number 15-8949, block 819, lot 14. Item number 10 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new building and to restore the facades and replace windows and storefront infill at numbers 40 and 42 West 18th Street. And item number 11 is an application for a modification of use in bulk to requesting that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a report to the City Planning Commission relating to an application for a special permit pursuant to Section 74-711 of the zoning resolution for a modification of use. And these were both presented on September 23rd and are back today with some revisions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Olivia Bazzi, Preservation Staff. The item is 38 to 42 West 18th Street, and the applications, as originally presented at the September 23rd public hearing, were for the construction of a new building and a related application for an MOU and restoration of the two historic buildings located on the project site. Your primary concerns with the proposal were the height of the building proposed for 17th Street, as well as the way that the proposed mesh facade would work, both in terms of a cladding system and aesthetically within the context of the Ladies Mile Historic District. Please note that while there was no request to restudy the proposed concrete cladding system for 18th Street, that has been changed, and the architect is now proposing a system of brick panels for that facade. Morris Adjemi will present the revised design.
We'll reopen the hearing.
Hello, Commissioners. Morris Adjemi, the architect for the project. I'm just going to go very quickly through these slides. The site is a through block that goes between 17th and 18th Street, between 6th Avenue and 5th Avenue. It's currently a parking lot. Some existing conditions. This shows the existing two buildings which we'll be restoring, as well as the new construction that's on the existing lot. We were asked to look at the height on 17th Street, and we reduced the height 19 feet, which I think has made a big difference in terms of the overall proportions, as well as the way the building fits on the streetscape. And you can see that here. The building is lower than the adjacent building by approximately 8 feet at the highest point, or near the highest point, and about 6 feet lower at that point, which I can show you in greater detail. Here's the before image on the left and the current proposed on the right, which I think both, again, the proportions and the overall height of the building, I think, are much better in the streetscape. Here, again, before on the left and the proposed on the right, the rendered view. And this is the previous rendered view that we had when we did the new view. But we did want to show that as well. Interesting sky color. One of the other things that came up was the relationship between the existing, or not the existing, the actual facade of the building and the decorative facade. And I think this image does a lot to explain how that works. And we think there's definitely a relationship with the vertical members, which align or are centered on the existing, sorry, I keep saying existing, the decorative facade aligns with the mullion pattern for the windows. We have a large mock-up which shows the material. One of the other questions that came up was the shininess of the material. We had shown this sample, which was showing the brick pattern which exists in a couple of locations, primarily on the edges of the project. But this, it was always our intention to have a matte finish, which we were able to have the steel fabricator, or the mesh fabricator create. So you can, if you want to take a look at that, it's a much duller matte finish. It has a touch surface. And that's a mock-up showing this, like one of those mullions and the plaster beyond it. Then here's some examples of other buildings that have mesh facades. This is a drawing to show that that facade is about a foot or exactly a foot from the face of the facade to the glass. And this is actually about 3 feet. It's 4'7", including the wall. Showing some examples of decorative metal work in the district. That was part of the story, as well as the 18th Street, the changes to the 18th Street facade. As we were working on the project, I started to think about the workmanship and how this would be realized, and I felt that brick, doing the same stepping pattern and getting lighter as it went up, would still achieve that effect, but I think it's more appropriate in some ways, as well as easier to achieve a better quality product. And many of the buildings in the district, both, I'm going to just zoom to here, both the historic buildings as well as new approved buildings in the district use buff brick. So that's a sample of the brick for the main facade and the brick for the side walls. And then we were asked to show a view looking at the project. So we took a view. This is looking east at the ground level with the storefronts that will be restored. And then here's a detail showing how the brick will step, and then they drop off every couple of floors on that. And then I showed that already, and then there's an overall view of that. Yeah.
The brick changes to this on the sides? That's
Yes.
the side brick?
Yeah, that's the side brick. So the side brick, and I think you can see it actually in that detail
There you
better.
go.
So there you can see it.
Okay. Thank you. Questions? Are there any questions? Mr. Ajmi?
So
Yes,
it's just
Roberta, and then
have
Michael.
So the texture is just on the front.
Yes,
It doesn't-
the steps occur only on the main facade, and the side
What
is
about
just
the
flat.
lintel and the seal? That's
Right.
just
Just-
plain.
Yeah, just plain.
Michael?
I just have a technical question. On this facade, you've got a lot of horizontal brick joints that are going to be taking on water. And I guess it's more a technical question than anything else. That's a lot of
Right.
mortar joints sucking up water. How are you detailing that so that the bricks aren't falling off next year?
We envision this to be brick embedded in precast.
Okay, thank you.
So that would help us to avoid, and we have a slight pitch on the brick to shed water.
It is all one color there, although you're just showing that for effect to show the.
Exactly, it's all one color, just show the shadow so that you read the dot.
Okay. All right. I think that lowering the height of the building on 18th Street makes it much better, and sorry, on 17th Street really fits in well. And I think just on the 18th Street facade, I don't think there were really a lot of comments about the material, but it seems that with this change, to me, it seems to fit in quite well. I think there were definitely questions and some comments about the materials that they were proposing to use on 17th Street, and I know I said that I think it's really very innovative. One of the things is that this kind of metal mesh is very contemporary, and I think it's a very creative way of using it in a historic district, and quite clever when you think of still trying to create something that evokes the materials of the district, but in fact it is a new material. And I think, at least I find, that enhances this building, but still in its treatment and the fenestration and other aspects, and even the depth and recesses within the facade, it recalls the character of the neighborhood and the historic district. So I think it's a beautiful design and very much appropriate here. Yes. Yes, Fred?
All right. Yeah, I like the building before. I think the lowering of it is appropriate given the context of the building next to the building next door with its bowed cornice, I think, which sort of is demanding to stand alone maybe on the block. So I think this is also, as I said, I'm sure before, incredibly creative, but also contextual completely, but using a new way of getting at context. I think the building will be at its most interesting when you're really close up and see the whole ruse of it. I mean, I think the combination of the two close up will be extraordinary. And that's not to diminish my admiration for the building on the other side, too, which I think is, I thought it was fine in concrete, but I think maybe it's even more appropriate with the context now of the mostly brick that you see in the district, but again, used in a very creative and unusual and frankly contemporary way, all of which to me is quite appropriate and really beautiful. So.
Thank you. Michael and then Adi. Michael, weren't you going to say something? Oh, okay.
My only issue before was the finish on the stainless steel. I think this is really just wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Adi?
Well, I have to say that I've never really understood why two different materials for the two facades of a single building. You just have too many ideas. Not to be critical, but you know, there are other sites. What you were able to do on the 18th Street in the kind of taking the idea of the facade from the concrete to the brick was, I think, such an important step in really articulating both kind of scale and craft and the kind of, it's a really interesting departure as interpretation of brick done otherwise, and very powerful. It also, to me, invokes a kind of like a tramp art kind of sensibility, in that it's a little bit odd and beautiful because there's so much of it. But I still don't, my opinion is I still don't think you've achieved that in that going the next level on the mesh. Even though I think that the image that you render of the from the interior is really evocative, but I don't know that it evokes mesh on the other side of the glass curtain wall. I think I could be looking at brick on the other side of the curtain wall, and it would be just as interesting and powerful, this kind of bit of space that's sort of your own on the interior of the facade, experienced from within the apartment units. So I'm just not convinced of the mesh, don't understand why it needs, or don't understand yet that you've resolved it in the way that I feel you have the brick development of the concrete facade. So.
But just to explain, the layers that, can you just tell us the layers again, where the glass is, where, so the mesh is at the outer end, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So the mesh is here.
Okay.
This heavy profile is the mesh, and the glass line is here.
Okay.
So that mesh is tied back to the building, because it has its own, it's stiff, it has its own
Yeah,
profile.
yeah, and you can see on the mock-up that it's pretty robust.
Okay. Other comments?
Well, I still have a little problem just imagining what it is you really see when you go into the light, just because the other examples of mesh buildings that I've seen aren't done quite this way, you know, cut out. So I think that this is going to be great, or interesting, you know, I think it's fine. It's just that I feel like I just don't know all which I know about. But I think that lowering the height is certainly a good thing. And I think that having a mesh that's not so shiny, and seeing something like the one that he has here, is a very good step too. And but I think I like it enough to gamble.
I mean, one thing I did was that they gave us some examples of mesh, and I did go to the internet and I checked out a whole bunch of them, and they're used in a variety of ways. It seems like it's a fascinating material, and it gives a certain lightness. Okay, so this is going to show it.
But here it's cut out, right?
Yeah.
The window,
Yeah.
the window areas are cut out.
It's
and
cut-
formed and shaped. So the mesh that I saw in the buildings was just, I didn't see any, did I see anything like this? I don't think.
Right.
Right, you mean it's always like one flat surface versus, I mean,
So this is something else, and you get other kinds of shadows, and you get other kinds of depth and things.
which is what makes it all the more creative, I
I
think.
think that this is a,
Yes.
you know, but it's more interesting.
You know, if I can just,
I'm sorry.
when, I guess maybe 10 years ago, we were seeing more of this than we are now, which is a fabric on tops of buildings when there's construction underneath. I mean, for some reason, there was more of it, and now those projects are done. And those were always such powerful images because the screen was in front of a solid. Here you've got screen in front of, in a sense, screen, curtain wall as screen. And so there's something about it that's just, it feels like a doubling that's not, that doesn't render the power that you really seem to be attracted to in terms of what scrim really achieves, which is kind of gossamer diaphanous stuff on top of very solid. Anyway, maybe you can respond to that.
Yeah, sure. Is that okay?
Yes, of course, we
Yeah,
have.
I think that the two facades are doing different things, and I think that the mesh facade is emulating the historic qualities in the district in a new material, and it's creating all of the decorative patterns and the detailing and the articulation of the facade, and the facade behind that, big window wall, if you will, is very regular and modern, and there's that tension between the two, which I think you really see here, which I think creates very interesting, an interesting space, and also an interesting dialogue between a modern building, which is all glass, and then creating something that isn't all glass, that will act as a veil to create this historic-like ghost in front of it.
I think it also somehow, it creates depth in a very interesting way as well, because you have these two layers. And I think depth and recess is very much a part of the historic district. Michael, yes?
I'm confused about this one. I think that, first of all, the 18th Street building, I think, is fantastic. It's much improved, no question about it. Total home run. I recall being concerned about the relationship between the grid of the curtain wall and the very articulated scrim wall, and I think that the interior rendering that's up now addresses those concerns to a certain degree, and I think that I feel better about that aspect of it. I have one niggling concern that I don't think would prevent me from voting for it, but I'm just kind of wondering about it, is that, I look at that mock-up there, the full-size mock-up, and I think that it's very interesting, and I think that this could either be a total success or a total failure. And I think it comes down to a couple of things. First of all, how is that going to read from street level when you're looking at a very big building? Is it really going to look, is it going to disappear as it kind of does there, and I really see the Muntins much more than I really see the three-dimensional differentiation in planes, and I'm going to see a very banal looking curtain wall building with this somewhat indistinct pseudo-classical scrim in front of it? Or is there really going to be a dynamic play between a readable form of scrim and a readable form of grid? I'm not sure. I really can't get it, but I'm a little bit worried about that, and I'm also worried, again, on a low level, but how are you going to clean the windows? What's going to happen after a week and a half when some lint gets into that grid and starts to stay there, and over the years, I mean, how do you keep this building clean? It's going to be a maintenance nightmare, but I guess that's kind of not our concern, but I don't know.
Right.
It just seems like...
Limestone, no.
Yeah, but
think that-
limestone ages in a magisterial way. This, I'm not sure if it looks like...
The building is magisterial.
Yeah, well, this I think will look like the lint screen on your dryer. I don't want it to be a negative thing. I think it could, unless you're kind of power washing this thing once a year, but I guess
Right,
you could do
although
that.
interestingly enough, I think I read that, that in fact it's pretty durable and kind of low maintenance, so so
It's low maintenance. The question is whether making it look nice is going to be low maintenance. I just don't know, but I guess I wouldn't withhold my vote for it, but I just wanted to kind of get it out there and think about it.
Yes, others, Chris and...
Only took me 30 minutes to relate the photo to the fine samples.
So you're fine with it, and John?
Yeah.
You're okay? Okay, so I think, yes.
One tiny one, with regard to Michael's issue about the grid, actually, only at your very eye level will you be staring at the grid so that you see the ground and the field. Once you start to look, the aspect will make each of those pieces of wire move closer together. So I think the perspective you have will create that somewhat solid aspect.
Okay. Yeah, I know you,
I don't know, I walk by buildings and I touch them, and I don't know that I want to, this one, at all. I mean, not, who cares if I want to touch a building or not, but it's hurts. I don't know.
I understand out of your reservations, but I think the rest are fine with it, so we're going to go ahead. And, okay. Fred, do you want to read the resolution? We'll close the hearing then.
Is it just one or is it two?
It's two.
And why is it two?
It's also...
Oh, it's two
there's-
buildings,
No, it's not two buildings. One is, this will go to the City Planning Commission
I got it. Okay.
because they're asking for heightened setback, and I think rear yard, okay.
Okay, here goes. In the matter of 38-42 West 18th Street, also known as 41-45 West 17th Street in the Ladies Mile Historic District, Block 819, Lot 14, 15, and 16. The application is to construct a new building and to restore the facades and replace windows and storefront infill at 40 and 42 West 18th Street. I recommend approval, noting that the construction of a new building on the site will complete the street wall on West 17th and West 18th Streets and will reinforce the continuity of the street wall on two streets, which is currently disrupted on both 17th Street and 18th Street by a through-block parking lot. That the careful massing of the building into distinct parts allows the facades to relate successfully to the streetscape on both West 17th and 18th Streets. That the height and scale of both facades relate well to the context of the surrounding buildings in the streetscape. That the proposed West 17th Street facade is articulated as a base, shaft, and capital, recalling the typical facade compositions of the early 20th century commercial buildings located throughout this historic district. That the proposed West 17th Street facade, composed of a structural glass curtain wall overlain by metal mesh panels, that an innovative evocation of classical architectural features and ornament. That the proposed West 18th Street facade, composed of a grid of brick panels tapering toward solid to void, is evocative of the progression of traditional load-bearing masonry construction to steel skeleton construction that shaped the development of the historic district during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. That the detailing of this brick facade, featuring strong orthogonal lines and recessed step window frames, is a contemporary interpretation of the robust facade articulation and ornament characteristic of masonry buildings found within the historic district. That both facade designs incorporate an interplay of facade planes and smooth and textured surfaces, and will therefore display a level of depth and articulation comparable to what is found on historic buildings within the historic district. and that the proposed building will enhance the special architectural and historic character of the district. And
Second. Okay, we'll read both, right? And then.
yeah, I would read both, okay.
Two votes.
Vote first.
We do this one
Two
first?
votes.
Okay,
All
sorry.
right, so-
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Reluctantly opposed.
Okay.
What did I just read? Oh,
No, this 74, 711. It's on page 22. Yeah. I just did that.
read this?
Yeah.
All right, okay, sorry. Okay, and secondly, that the restorative work to be approved pursuant to LPC 15-8949 will return the building closer to its original appearance. That the restorative work, including restoration of the brick, limestone, and terracotta masonry facades, repair and/or replacement in kind of deteriorated sheet metal facade elements, and replication of missing decorative elements, replacement of windows and installation of wood and storefront infill will bring the building up to a sound first-class condition, aid in its long-term preservation, and reinforce the architectural and historic character of the building, the streetscape, and the historic district. That the owners of the building have committed themselves to establishing a cyclical maintenance plan, and that a restrictive declaration will be filed against the property, which will bind the applicants and all heirs, successors, and assigns to maintain the continuing maintenance program in perpetuity.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Done. Thank you. Nice job.